Great. So, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to our regular weekly call inside the program. We've talked a lot about mindset related things recently, so I thought it was time that we talked about something else, a little bit more sciencey. Something that I've been talking to a lot of you guys about recently as well is about sleep. We're going to cover that today. Sadly, it's a really common thing that a lot of us really struggle with getting a good night's sleep. I know that over the years, this is something I have really struggled with as well. Honestly, as of not too long ago as well, I definitely go through periods where I find sleep really tough. So it's going to be short and sweet today. I want to just make this really useful, compact, and ultimately just make this something that you guys can go away and start to implement really easily. So we're going to go through the best strategies on if you are struggling with sleep right now, talk about why it's so important, not just for, our transformation, our fat loss progress, but for our health. Talk about that and then talk about the biggest tips that I have that I've learned over the years to help you to overcome and to get a better night's sleep. So, first of all, sleep is one of the most underrated but important tools for fat loss specifically and health. It's crazy how much of an impact sleep has on everything, especially when we're talking about achieving a big transformation inside this program. Oftentimes, I've spoken to so many people over the years that have been like, I'm doing everything. I'm tracking my food. I'm staying in a deficit. I'm getting my steps in. I'm really consistent with my workouts, but the scale just isn't budging. I'm just not seeing change. Oftentimes, a huge reason is that their sleep is off. They're getting like 4 hours of sleep per night, and the sleep that they are getting is really light, disturbed sleep. So, not just in terms of fat loss, but also just for like our mental well-being and our health, making sure that we're sleeping as well as possible is absolutely crucial. So, first of all, without going like, too much into the science of it, sleep impacts fat loss specifically and affects our progress because, first of all, if our sleep isn't regular, our hunger hormones become out of sync and become unregulated, and their levels change to a level that we don't want them to be at. You have two main hormones for that called ghrelin and leptin. These are the hormones that make you feel hungry and also suppress your appetite. One does each of those simultaneously. If our sleep is off, your ghrelin and your leptin levels, those hormones are going to be very unbalanced as well. So that's why when we have poor sleep, we have a massively increased appetite. We feel much hungrier and we get very tempted to go for like the more calorie dense, maybe higher saturated fat, greasier food options because these hormone levels are completely out of sync. So basically, your hunger levels and your appetite is going crazy, which when you're in a calorie deficit is not ideal and makes it a lot harder. On top of that, cortisol, your stress hormone, also the levels of that changes quite dramatically as well. Cortisol isn't like inherently a bad hormone. Cortisol is actually the hormone that makes us feel awake and wakes us up in the morning. So, to a certain extent, we want to have levels of cortisol. But if our sleep is out of whack, basically we become massively stressed and our cortisol levels rise way too high. And when our cortisol levels are really high, i.e., we're really stressed out, your body doesn't want to lose weight. Your body's feeling stressed. Your body's basically trying to hold on to everything as much as possible because you are feeling really stressed. It's not going to want to lose fat. So as a result of that, high cortisol levels, whether that's due to like stress, lack of sleep, whatever it might be, and that's also going to have an impact on our fat loss progress and can also be a big reason why we're just not seeing that change. Also, when we're tired, we just don't really want to stay on track. Like, we're all human at the end of the day. When you're knackered, the last thing you're going to think is, oh, yeah, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and I'm going to meal prep and I'm going to prep for like 2 hours and get all my food in order and I'm going to go like run a half marathon. When you're shattered and you've had like 4 hours sleep, you're not going to want to do that. You're going to feel very tired, grumpy, you're going to feel less motivated, and your therefore adherence to this program is going to just drop down dramatically. That's not because like you're lazy, you lack willpower. It's because you are exhausted. So that's also a huge reason why. And as kind of a byproduct of that, like I said, your energy, your motivation, and also just your positive thinking goes out of the window. I don't know how many of you guys feel like this, but if I haven't had a good night's sleep, I honestly feel like if something goes wrong, I feel like my whole world has come crashing down. I feel like everything has gone so wrong. I'm a mess. I'm a failure. Like, and nothing's going to go right. That's just because, again, you're just absolutely knackered. So all of that positive thinking and everything just flies out the window as well. And as a result of that, when you are trying to do this process, you're trying to go through a huge transformation, which isn't easy. the want to quit or throw in the towel suddenly becomes very appealing and suddenly becomes massive because you are just really exhausted. So that's basically why sleep is so important, not just for fat loss, but for our health, and why we need to make sure that it's really optimized. So, how do we actually try to improve our sleep? Hopefully without the need for medication or reliance on any form of tablets. Yes, of course, there are melatonin supplements, there are sleep supplements, there are sleeping tablets that you can take. But ideally, what we want to be doing is ideally not having to rely on any of that sort of stuff, to kind of be like medication free, tablet free. That's always what we really ideally want to try. So these are some things that we can do first so that hopefully we don't have to rely on medication to help us get a good night's sleep. And these are things that I've tried over the years. I've honestly worked with so many people, including some of you guys in the program. We've done these techniques that have worked really well. First of all, the biggest thing you can do is reset your circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is just a fancy way of saying your body clock. So that's the time that your body naturally wakes up and naturally goes to sleep. If that's out of whack, that's what's going to cause poor sleep, poor quality sleep, lack of sleep, and also, like we talked about with those hormones, with your ghrelin, leptin, cortisol, that's also going to be a reason why they're going to be really out of sync. So cortisol is the hormone that makes us feel awake and wakes us up in the morning. Melatonin is the hormone that makes us feel sleepy at nighttime. So if these are out of sync, if you're not producing melatonin at the right times, you're not producing cortisol at the right amount of times, you're going to find it really hard to sleep. So we want to make sure that we're resetting that as much as possible. The biggest way that you can do that sounds really simple, but it's key. Go to bed and wake up at the same time as much as you possibly can. Even on the weekends, obviously, you're going to have times where like you have a late night, you go out and do things, but as much as you can, at least during the working week, go to bed, wake up at the same time. I'm going to be honest, I find this really hard. I've always found this hard over the years. I'm someone that doom scrolls before bed. I've said this before on calls before, but this is definitely a flaw of mine and something that I find hard. So I've had to be really strict with myself to make sure that I'm going to bed, waking up at the same time. That's going to really help to reset your circadian rhythm, reset your body clock, make sure that the melatonin, the cortisol, all of those hormones are being regulated and produced as effectively as possible. As a result of that, what you can also do, as well as doing this, is if you are struggling with sleep, what I want you to do is when you wake up in the morning, I want you to wake up and get sunlight as early as you can. Now that it's getting lighter in the UK, it's getting warmer, spring is here, summer's coming. This is a lot easier. Obviously, it's harder in the winter, but I want you to wake up at that same time, commit to that, and then get some sunlight in your eyes for the first 10 to 15 minutes of your day. You can go for a short walk, you can make a tea, make a coffee, get a glass of water, sit out in the garden for a few minutes, but get that sunlight in, and that's also going to really help with that hormone production and try to ensure that you're getting good regular sleep. You only have to do it for like 10 minutes a day. I think it still counts if you like sit like in a conservatory or something and you get it through a window, but ideally get outside. And in the winter months, what you can do is get a SAD clock. So SAD stands for seasonal affective disorder. They're those kind of like lights or clocks or alarm clocks that have that light. You can use that first thing in the morning to help you to feel awake when we are in those really cold, dark, miserable winter months in the UK, wherever you guys are in the world as well. So that's number one. Number two, the one that no one wants to hear because we love our coffee. But if you are struggling with sleep, you've got to reduce your caffeine window. Caffeine has a half-life. Essentially, that's how long the caffeine stays in your system and is active for. And it's long. So if you're having coffee at like 4 p.m., you're still going to have half that amount of coffee in your system when it gets to like 10, 11 p.m. at night. So if you're already struggling with sleep and you're chugging caffeine late in the afternoon, you're setting yourself up for failure and you're pretty much guaranteeing that you're not going to drift off. So you need to have a cut-off time for caffeine. This is exactly what I do. I normally have 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day. It's my favorite time of the day in the morning. I love it, but I have one, maybe two a day. My cutoff is 12 p.m. I don't have any after that. So you need to start doing that if you're really struggling as well, because that's just going to help you to actually make sure that you feel tired. A very small thing, but really needed. And if you're someone that is having loads of cups of coffee throughout the day, you're having it like 4 or 5 p.m. and you're struggling, cut it out, bring that window shorter. Number three is just sleep hygiene. What I mean by that is things that you can have when you are going to sleep that means that you're in a good sleeping environment, so that you can try to get the best night's sleep possible. So the first thing is have a colder room. If your room is colder, you are more likely to fall asleep. That's because when we fall asleep when our core body temperature drops. So if you're sleeping in a boiling hot room, in a really warm room, obviously it's going to take longer for your core body temperature to drop down. So a colder room is better to have a better night's sleep. On top of that, get some blackout curtains, particularly as we're going into summer. If you're someone that works like night shifts and things as well, I know that sleep is a big thing. that can be challenging. So if you're sleeping during the day, particularly get blackout curtains, get some blinds, get an eye mask or something as well. There's some really bougie ones you can get these days on Amazon. Start to do that as well. Also, if you struggle to sleep, this is really simple, but fall asleep to a really boring book or a podcast or something. I believe that listening to music isn't ideal because music has a regular rhythm. So our brain basically feels more stimulated and more active. But read a really boring book or listen to a podcast, listen to some people talking to help that to cause you to drift off as well. Honestly, like I will pick up some sort of boring book, I'll read 2 pages and I'll be literally like dropping off in bed like that. It does really work. Another thing that you can do, which is also about lowering your core body temperature, is to have a shower before bed. Having that shower and then getting out of the shower, your body temperature drops. So that can be really helpful to do if you struggle to fall asleep as well. A couple of things as well. Put your phone on do not disturb when you sleep. Put your phone on do not disturb or turn it off or whatever it is. When you put it on charge, move it away from your bed or put it in an entirely different room and invest in an alarm clock to get you up in the morning. Your phone is literally designed to be like interesting, colorful, vibrant, addictive. So you need to move that if you struggle with sleeping, like move that out of your environment. Like I always used to fall asleep like with my phone in my hand, which is just insane. I know that loads of us do it. So make sure that you shift that as well, like remove that. You're going to be less tempted to doom scroll. You're going to have less stress because ultimately, like when we're on social media and we're scrolling, being stimulated, getting all this information, it is actually can be very stressful, particularly before bed. And a final thing as well, if you're someone that works from home and you currently do a lot of work like in your bedroom and you struggle with sleep, take the work out of your bedroom. You should only associate your bedroom with an environment that is calm, restful, and associated with sleep. If you're working from home in your room right now and you're struggling with sleep, that could likely be because you're now associating that space with like work, being focused, being awake, possibly being stressed as well. So stop working in your room if you do that. Like go to a coffee shop or something for a day, or move your work to like, I don't know, if you've got home office or something that you could make shift, or like move it into the dining room, move it into the kitchen, but remove that and mentally make sure that that space is just reserved for like calm and peace and sleep. Again, talking about that limiting stress, like try to limit your stress before bed as much as you can. I know that sometimes that is like much easier said than done. But I think no matter how busy we are, as a non-negotiable, you need to have a cut-off time from working. Particularly if you're someone that is listening to this that's like self-employed, you work from home, whatever it might be, you have to be strict with yourself and have a cut-off time from working. If you're working right up until like 9, 10 p.m. and then trying to sleep, you're going to be wired and it's going to be hard for you to drift off. So set that boundary for yourself. I think that no matter how busy you are, you can make that a non-negotiable. So I say this from a place of love, but like, don't give me that you're really busy and that you can't possibly do that. I think no matter how busy we are, we need to make that a non-negotiable because you deserve that. You deserve that mental rest from work. Again, that device cut-off time as well, like putting the phone on do not disturb, putting it in a different room, or at least coming away from social media and having a break. This will do wonders for your mental health and will do wonders for helping you to like unwind before bed as well. A small thing that I've started doing that I absolutely love as well. If you're someone that has a busy job, your work causes you quite a lot of anxiety, and let's say that you find it hard to sleep because you're thinking about everything that you need to do the next day, you're thinking about all those things you have to get done. When you finish your work day, whether that's at like, 5, 6, 7 o'clock, whenever that might be, I want you to make a list of the stuff you have to do tomorrow and write it down and jot it all down and put it on a piece of paper. Just by mentally dumping it down and either like on your notes, on your laptop, on your phone, or on a bit of paper, you're kind of clearing your mental headspace and then setting yourself up for an evening, hopefully, that is like relaxed, calm, and restful. So if you're someone that tosses and turns and is like, I've got so much to do tomorrow, start doing that and just making a really simple list. Again, like I talked about, talking about like reading a boring book or listening to a podcast, like do something enjoyable to unwind before bed. That might be reading something, that might be like listening to music, that might be like having a bath or something like that. That might be watching something on TV, whatever it might be, but do something to unwind. Obviously, in an ideal world, we wouldn't have any screens before we go to bed, but I know that sometimes that's a bit easier said than done, but you can also do that. A final thing to note as well, that if you're struggling with sleep, if you're someone that does very late evening workouts, that might be something that you need to reassess. Exercise has got loads of incredible benefits, obviously. But one thing that it does do that can be a little bit unhelpful before bed is that it actually makes us feel really revitalized, really awake, and boosts our energy. So if you're someone that struggles with sleep, and you're working out at like 9 p.m., I would change that. I would change that to a morning workout because, again, that's just making you feel really wired. And then you're going to come home and find it harder to drift off. Everyone's a little bit different with that. But if you're someone that does struggle with something to bear in mind, you just might need to reassess the timing of your gym sessions. And the final one is just be aware of your alcohol consumption. Let's be honest, like alcohol isn't good for us. It's literally, it is poison at the end of the day, it's in our system. Alcohol, the reason why it impacts sleep so much is because it disrupts your deep sleep. So we need that deep sleep. That deep sleep that we want to be having every night is sleep that's restorative, does that repair, and ultimately makes us feel rested. Alcohol kind of disturbs that and makes it impossible for us to have a deep sleep, even if it feels like we have a deep sleep. So it's just something you need to be aware of. If you need to be mindful of. If you're someone that does have like multiple drinks per week, every single week, it will be having an impact on your sleep, which as a byproduct will be having an effect on your fat loss progress and your transformation progress as well. I'm not saying cut it out totally and go like totally teetotal. I'm just saying if you're struggling, it's just something to be aware of. I would argue that if you're someone that does like a drink, that's absolutely fine. But if you're doing it like multiple times a week, every week, that is something we'd probably need to reassess. And particularly at least during the working week, I think as well. And that's if you're struggling with sleep, that's something to bear in mind. I mean, we'll kind of do a whole other talk on alcohol and other reasons for that as well. But talking just about sleep, if you struggle and you do have quite a lot to drink regularly, that's just something to be mindful of. So that's everything I wanted to go through for this week, guys. Like I said, I didn't want this to be too long. I just wanted this to hopefully be like really useful for you, things that you can go away and try that if you're like, I am actually really struggling with sleep. And to summarize, there is absolutely no reason why, like, no matter our circumstances, no matter what we've got going on, you deserve to have a really good, restful, good quality night's sleep. So, to recap your checklist and things that you can try, the first thing that I would try is resetting that circadian rhythm. So, like I said, having a regular sleeping and waking schedule, trying that early sunlight technique. And if we're in the winter, maybe getting like a sad lamp or something or a sad light. That's the first thing that I'd start with. Other things to be wary of, your caffeine window. If you're chugging caffeine at 5 p.m. and you're sleeping terribly, cut that out and reduce it. Sleep hygiene, those tips that we talked about, so that you're having the best night's sleep possible in a calm environment. And as a result of that, like trying to limit your stressors before bed as much as possible and just being mindful of how much alcohol you're having and being aware that that could be having an impact on your sleep as well. That's everything for this week, guys. If you do have any questions, as always, please feel free to message me one-to-one. If you're inside the program, obviously you know where I am. If you guys are watching this back on Spotify, YouTube, wherever it might be, feel free to drop me a message on Instagram if you want to talk about this a bit further as well. But I'm going to let you guys all go. Thank you very much for those of you that have attended live. Have a lovely day, and we'll be catching up with you all very, very soon.